Hello everyone, I'm going to talk about a carbonate drink which most of us like to consume. So the carbonation in beer is a chemical reaction which consists in a dissolution of a gas, precisely CO2, in a dissolution, in this case the beer. So there are two main factors in carbonation, temperature and pressure. The first factor is temperature, because any type of beer contains a certain amount of CO2 at a certain temperature. Beer can contain a maximum amount of gas. This is called the saturation point, which is expressed in volumes of CO2. After this point, the general gas begins to be released. The temperature acts on the saturation point. That means that at higher temperature, there is a lower level of saturation. The second factor is pressure, because the beer is subject in a certain pressure and after it produces an increase in its saturation point. At this point, the CO2 produced by the gas cannot escape, and therefore the pressure inside the bottle increases. In turn, the saturation point increases, giving rise to what is called carbonation. On the other hand, the low saturation point occurs when we remove the cap of the bottle because the pressure changes inside the bottle and the CO2 begins to be released. When we take the beer out of the fridge, the temperature of the beer increases, causing the saturation point to drop. Ways to carbonate beer. There are two different ways to carbonate beer. So the first one is artificial carbonation and the other one is priming carbonation. So the first one is artificial carbonation. So this type of carbonation is forced because the CO2 gas is injected into the bottle or a container where the beer is kept. So the second one is priming carbonation. This type of carbonation is done in bottles. It's to add to the finished beer and before boiling some fermentable sugar as sucrose, dextrose, or unfermented wort. This allowed what could be called a second fermentation to occur within the bottle and with the yeast residues remaining after the main fermentation, because the yeast will convert these small amounts of add fermentables into alcohol and CO2 gas. The CO2 is the responsible of generating the appearance and movement of bubbles and foam that we find refreshing. About the level of carbonation, most of beers are between 2.2 and 2.6%, but if a beer is beyond 4% of carbonation, this beer is clearly overcarbonated. Thanks for your attention and enjoy a good beer.